I left my main kind of work, which had been for 25 years, trying to strengthen civil society around the world in various ways, and particularly building infrastructure organizations to support civil society, mostly in the developing world. And I was extremely frustrated by what I felt was a kind of problem around measurement and the signals that we use to set accountability and make decisions. I felt they were really not in line with practitioner understandings of what make change. And so I quit my job and set up Keystone with a bunch of friends and started to work on trying to find what we thought of as practitioner-friendly approach to measurement. And that led us on a multi-year journey to constituent voice. Along the way, diving deeply into the traditional practices of monitoring and evaluation and performance management. My big takeaway from those early years was that there's a kind of irreducible complexity at the heart of measurement for social change. There's complexity around causality, and there's complexity of perspective of who you are and where you stand. And I love this cartoon because I think it captures both those dimensions of complexity in a beautiful, simple, and powerful way. And for us, the kind of breakthrough came when we started to stop trying to measure impact and rather started trying to create a continual flow of incredibly helpful and useful evidence for continual improvement. And then with this idea that you iterate forward with admittedly imperfect models and imperfect evidence, but always working toward getting better. And so that's what constituent voice as a tool is all about. At the center are a few timely signals that you generate through micro surveys, asking very few great questions on a regular basis. And then what you do with the feedback with the data that comes from that, and you have to turn it into data, is you then analyze it internally and look at it against other information that you have, because you want to use all the evidence that's available to you to try to improve your work. So outcome measures and results from ex post studies and extant data that's out there and research from other organizations, bringing that together with the pulse that's coming from the feedback and reflecting on that internally, and super importantly, the third step in our system, together with the people that are giving you the feedback. And that's what we call closing the loop or dialogues phase. And for us, that's critically important.
From the get-go, CEO was really proficient at collecting data because it was in our DNA from day one. And I think David heard us present 5-6 years ago about sort of our evidence building practices. And he came up to us later and sort of asked, a fundamental question is, how are you collecting data from people? Sounds like you're really doing a great job collecting data about people. So that question from David really planted a seed at CEO with me and Mindy Tarlow, who was then the CEO, about expanding how we measure and how we know what's working, what's not. So this concept of a three-legged stool of measurement, it's something that Faye Tuwisky has written about, and something that we really adopted as a mature organization around what is it that we need to know and how are we going to know it to really understand how we can best serve our participants. The leg that was weakest in our really non-existent 5 or 6 years ago was answering the question, what do people really want in their lives to have a better life, and are they getting it at CEO? What's their experience of the CEO model, and what can we do differently to improve that experience? CEO was a model that was very focused on giving feedback to participants about their journey to get employed after they returned home from prison. So the mission of CEO was to enrich the lives of people returning home from prison through employment. So as part of that transformation from prison to work, our model is all about giving daily feedback to participants. So we were very good at that. And so this really, made us have to flip the script a little bit, right? So to turn the feedback loop the other way, why do we think this is something that's important? And it really boils down to that our participants are the experts in their lives, and we want to make sure that we're leveraging that expertise and helping them leverage that expertise. It's very important for someone coming home within the culture that one of the first things they did was to get a cell phone or a smartphone. So we leveraged that, and with David's help, we started to design some very micro surveys, right? So instead of giving someone a 3 or 4 page survey, we asked people 3 or 4 questions, right? So, do you feel respected at CEO? How can CEO improve? Yes, we asked the Net Promoter question on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely would you recommend CEO to a friend? So we were able to get to a place where weekly we were sending SMS text messages to participants. That information was getting sent to our database. Reports were being generated from that. So we could really monitor the pulse of where participants were experiencing the program. With that data, we also did the thing that's the easiest thing to do to start any feedback system is we started to do monthly focus groups in our offices, which would use that information that we could cycle back to participants and understand what we were hearing more, and also just get some real-time feedback from participants face-to-face. There's nothing that replaces that. We also would collect feedback one-on-one in all of our case management sessions and enter them into our database with a hashtag feedback so we could run reports on it. And then we also created tablets in our waiting rooms, because one thing that we saw from the beginning was a lot of courtesy bias, we believe, because we were getting a lot of high scores when we would ask people to give us feedback on a 0 to 10 scale or 1 to 5. And it really hit us that, there are power relationships in when we work with clients and participants. And we have to understand that people don't want to get other staff people in trouble. They don't want to get themselves in trouble. They don't want to rock the boat. So because of that, we created an anonymous survey on tablets. And we definitely saw that there was a 20 to 30% difference in some of the answers that we got. So the question is, how did we close the loop, and what are some of the things that happened based on creating this systematic way of collecting, responding, dialoguing, and then course correcting. So here's just a couple of things that we changed when we started this system. We have a life skills class that started at 7 a.m. every Friday in our offices, and that was just based on historical system of making sure that we could get all the paperwork done for a participant before we started the class. And we got a lot of feedback when we started asking people about what we could do differently. And they said, well, why does it have to start at 7? And we really didn't have a good answer for that. So we started at 8. And there was no earthquake when we started at 8. And people, it was a lot more human-centered, the class. So people didn't have to get up at the crack of dawn to get to our class and be late. A lot of feedback around directions. CEO operates a lot of work sites for transitional work because people are placed in transitional work as a bridge to getting permanent work. And so we have to get a lot of people from point A to point B. I think the final point in terms of constituent voice in our measurement system is that we realize that there is going to be tension at times between what the feedback we're getting from participants compared to what other knowledge and data that we're looking at from the other realms of measurement, like performance monitoring and evaluation. And so the whole idea of the three-legged stool is to be able to triangulate that and figure out how to navigate that over time.
We're a 20-year-old organization. Our mission is to break the cycle of poverty, and we interpret that and implement against that by focusing on a career and financial coaching program with parents of young children. So the way we implement our feedback practice today, just so you have that context, is we do what we refer to as bursts. About twice a year for 1 month, we'll ask our parents to complete feedback surveys at the end of their meetings with us. And we'll just do that nonstop after every single meeting that is had for about 1 to 2 months. Our parents meet with us about on a monthly basis. So that means just about everybody should more or less be surveyed during those periods of time. LIFT program and our approach has always been very relational, very much about the one-on-one engagement with a parent and those we've served. And so we were always really interested in also understanding when parents feel that quality of relationship is good or less good, what does that mean for the kinds of impact they're seeing on their progress, career, financial, accessing benefits, building savings, etc. And so we did a lot of work a few years ago to really try to look at how that relationship pans out. When we're seeing the relationship quality is reported as strong from our members, does it actually translate to better results programmatically in the more traditional measures? And we really found these strong relationships, both, as you can see on the slide, there's actually a lot of findings here. I'm just going to focus on a couple of them just to not overwhelm you, but that when clients felt engaged with us, with staff and coaches, and with each other, they made much more progress, up to 3 times more progress on those more traditional measures. And this we found, along with, we were hearing during these community conversations we did in the run-up to our current strategic plan a few years ago. We did a lot of community conversations to really step back and think about our programming and what was working well, what wasn't, and making sure we were getting the perspective of the communities we were in. And when we did those deeper conversations, we were hearing, rising to the top, that an interest in supports around career trajectories and building up sort of the financial foundation to weather some of those storms I alluded to earlier. And we were hearing also that more meaningful engagement for the longer haul. So as I mentioned, we're always relational, but our program was actually, on average, we were seeing parents on average twice over the course of their engagement LIFT. So between that correlation analysis we did on the quality of engagement or the depth of engagement our parents perceived and the results they were achieving, so seeing those results as noted here on the slide, and with the feedback we were getting from parents, it really shaped our current strategic plan to be much more focused on longer term relationships with parents. So we shifted away from more of a 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch engagement to up to 2 years engagement. That was a big change that resulted from what we were hearing. In addition, really going from being sort of more oriented towards supporting across a wide breadth of domains, from immigration to housing to employment, trying to narrow in on the ones that our parents were elevating to the top, that they thought we were most able to be supportive in, given what we were bringing to the table and what their focus areas were as well. And building in more opportunities for parents to connect to one another. So all 3 of those things ended up featuring really strongly into our strategic plan and into the program we operate today. And we've seen really dramatic changes in the income gains that our parents are making. We're seeing parents that are making improvements show $1,000, $6,000 increase in their income annually, and have been part of an evaluation with Health and Human Services now to assess the impact on earnings from our program. This modified program that we've really been embarking on under the strategic plan, as I said, just sort of really powered by some of the feedback we got both in the community conversations and in the analysis we were able to do, pairing together the feedback on engagement and results.